Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. It is Wednesday, June 17th, 2020. Joined alongside Gavin Tony. It is 12 o'clock. Nice day outside as well, and another great day for our podcast and talk show. Gavin, how you doing today?
Doing great. Another great day on the show. Like you said, let's get it going. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. Excited to keep it going halfway through the week. For those who aren't aware right now, last week we did on Friday a Q&A session. We were in person together for our GOAT debate continued. We'll be doing the same thing this week, being in person. We have not yet chosen what our debate is going to be this week, but a lot of exciting stuff coming your way. So continue to stay tuned. We're really excited to have everyone part of the show. We've been having guests on all week. That does not stop today. We have Jake Starr coming on in a little bit to discuss the NCAA, the return to college, as well as talking about some sports as well with Penn State basketball and football. So a lot to go, and now we're going to get started with it, talking about pretty much some of the most relevant news right now. One of the biggest stars in Philadelphia, Bryce Harper, has been very vocal about pretty much his thoughts on what's going on. These guys are very passionate about the game. A lot of them speaking for themselves. But Bryce Harper posted a picture yesterday of himself in an Eagles uniform, and he was on Lane Johnson's podcast this week talking about possibly going to play football if this season doesn't work out. Lane Johnson jokingly on his Twitter posted signing a new fullback / outside linebacker, Bryce Harper, to a 1-year deal on the Eagles. So, Gavin, what are some of your thoughts on this? Number one, how serious are we taking this? But even if it isn't serious, how does this look for the MLB? How much confidence does Bryce Harper have that this season's even going to get going?
Well, in the time that's going on in the world, I got a good laugh out of it. I thought it was kind of funny. But we shouldn't take it too serious. I don't think Bryce, it's not that easy for someone that's a baseball body, like he's built for baseball, and then to try to switch it up in a matter of couple months for football. He's not leaving. Look at Michael Jordan. He came back. He thought he was ready, but he was really tired, and he had to work on getting himself back into a basketball shape. So we can't take Bryce Harper serious on joining the Eagles. It's a good funny joke. I think of him more as a safety almost, but um, but what it shows is he doesn't believe that baseball's coming back. He doesn't believe in MLPA and MLB reaching a deal at some point in agreement, and that looks bad on baseball. If you have a guy like Bryce Harper who's relatively joking about it, but sounds serious, and you also had the commissioner of the baseball league coming out and saying, "I'm 100% sure this season might not happen at all." That's not things baseball fans want to hear. So my question for you is, if baseball does not come back this year, how does that look for the rest of time or next year's season?
Well, it's terrible. I've emphasized this before how bad it looks for the MLB, considering that every other sport in the area, talking about NHL, NBA, even the NFL, they talk about returning to practice facilities in the future. Every league has done their best, has outlined safety guidelines, and have spoken about it, and players have been vocal. You see videos of Tom Brady throwing with Buccaneers players. You see all these different videos of these guys working together, and even Antonio Brown was throwing with a few different guys. So
Wow.
you take a look at all these other sports, obviously the NBA and the NHL, you take a look at them, and they're all preparing to come back. They understand the severity of the virus. They understand what's going on in the world, but they're also taking the right precautions. And this isn't even about the virus. I don't think any MLB player outside of Blake Snell has really talked about, quote unquote, risking their lives. And Gavin, you know how I feel about this, especially when we talk to people
Yeah.
like grocery store workers. We have one I know watches the show. I'm sure a bunch of people do that are out, quote unquote, risking their lives as well, and they're not getting paid millions of dollars. So I think it's rather stupid. Again, we talked about yesterday that there are players that do make the league minimum, which is still 10 times the average salary of a family in the United States. So I mean, when you take a look at that, it's pathetic for the MLB. It does not look good for them in any way whatsoever.
Well, you're right. And every other sport, even tennis, and tennis is a sport, and even tennis, they all came up with some type of plan. Where they stick to it, we don't know, but they came up with some type of plan to either come back and to hopefully resume play. You would think for baseball it would have been easier because they didn't even get to start play. For leagues like the NHL and the NBA, who was almost ready for prime time, which was their playoffs, they already have a plan, and you would think that would be harder than what baseball has to do. I just think this is a bad look all around, and I'm not surprised if the baseball fan base, because I know they have a hard time trying to reach the younger fan base. But if this is one thing that is going to ruin trying to reach the younger fans, this is not a good look for them in the outcome, even next year too.
Well, you think about it, baseball already has been on the decline over the past few years. I'm still a big baseball fan. The Phillies are starting to create some hype with some of the players they've acquired the past 2-3 seasons, give or take. But it's pretty obvious in this country that baseball is not the highest priority. You think about football, that's pretty much number one. The NBA is up there, number two, or even number one. Even the NHL is starting to get up there, very entertaining for a lot of people. So already baseball is not entirely popular. What makes you think that doing this is going to help your case at all? We know baseball is starting to die out a little bit in this country. I don't think it's going away. I think the MLB is very much here to stay for our lifetimes. You can watch the Phillies hopefully get more World Series trophies, hopefully even more than that. And so I think that it's crazy to think about that the MLB is going to cease to exist, but it does not look good for them at all, especially considering that the other sports are more popular than them and are making efforts. Right now, it doesn't look like they're making efforts. I understand the owners have sent proposals to the MLBPA. They declined it and countered, and now they're not even going to bother to counter. It doesn't look good in any way whatsoever. Most importantly, when you have such competition for sports right now. Right now could be ideal if they started a few weeks later, like they proposed in March when they postponed spring training. They'd be playing right now. What else would we be watching besides baseball? It would make it a lot more exciting. It would make it a lot more viewers, people that like to watch sports. Maybe they didn't like to watch baseball in the past. They're watching now. I know NASCAR and golf I've become more interested in because they're the only sports that are really on. So baseball missed an opportunity. They missed a huge opportunity. You want to talk about money? What's better than having more people watching your stuff, more people that are paying to go to games in the future when we can return to games because of the popularity of this current time? They wanted to go to Arizona. They wanted to have all these different plans. It was all chatter. There were no formal proposals for the most part. There really isn't a lot of information out there. Now they're just bickering like a bunch of little kids.
Well said. Final argument for me. America's pastime look like it's about to be left in the past, so they can't figure it out pretty soon.
I agree. They're going to have to figure that out, or we are going to have some more problems. So now we're going to switch it over to the NBA. We spoke a lot yesterday and the day before about Kyrie Irving, his comments, as well as the possibility of returning. They've made some pretty solidified plans for it, whether it be with the training facilities, the quarantining, the active testing, and a whole lot more. So the NBA can start, but the Players Coalition stated they need to see an active plan to ensure that social injustice is being not necessarily fixed right away, but at least there's a plan. The NBA is being conscious about it. And Gavin, you and I spoke about how much work that Adam Silver and the NBA put in to make this work and how disrespectful it's been for Kyrie Irving to do all this. And a lot of people have called him out for it, especially when he's not saying what he should be doing. He's just saying we shouldn't diverge attention. So what are some of your thoughts on what Avery Bradley specifically was really stating and how this is resonating with the entire NBA world?
Well, first of all, people calling out Kyrie Irving, remember, guys, you may disagree with Kyrie Irving's decision about not wanting to restart the season. But remember, Kyrie Irving also has a real point, too, about change. And Avery Bradley has a even better point. I think might have been well better said, too. Look, for those that didn't know, and Zach, I'm going to take it a little bit back. I want to say back in 2016, I think, Adam Silver, and we all love Adam Silver. You know, he's in my opinion, the best commissioner in all of sports because how willing he is. But Adam Silver said if any player were to take a knee, they will result in some major consequences. And this is back in 2016. So I look at that and I'm like, is there something that we don't know? Because no one would even like. I'm just thinking like, if there's something that the NBA is not telling us. Because Kyrie Irving, you guys gotta remember, he is on the NBAPA, or the Players Association, on some things too. He's second man behind Chris Paul. I think is the head guy. So we don't know, but I want to get back to today's thing. Avery Bradley, he's right. We need to make sure that the focus is still, yes, is about basketball, but also the main thing going on around this country right now is to make sure we're still focused on the change and the right and the equality and the unity that we all are hoping and praying for that happens one day. So is Avery Bradley and Kyrie Irving wrong? No. Is Kyrie Irving words about not restarting? I think it's better for them to play, But like once again, Avery Bradley, I do agree with having a plan on hand about the whole thing.
Definitely, no, the past few days has been up and down for people's opinions. Gavin, I know you mentioned you've kind of had a change of heart, thinking, well,
Yeah,
maybe at first they shouldn't come back, and then maybe, well, how can you, what better way to amplify your platform than by doing what you're famous or most known for? So, like we mentioned before, I think Kyrie Irving really wouldn't have said those if he was in a better playoff position. I'm not going to question his motive. His heart is in the right place. We all agree on that. But I think that this opportunity, this past few days, with Avery Bradley coming out and speaking, we know LeBron James was on the other side of the spectrum, thinking we should go back. But now Avery Bradley's coming out saying, okay, give us a plan of what the NBA is going to do to help continue to spread awareness, but also do some actions as well. So I think it's a really good compromise. Props to Avery Bradley for what he's done. And
yeah,
I hope to see what Kyrie Irving, Dwight Howard have to say about that case, because I mean these are some guys who have spoken out about it. We talked about before a couple of different players who don't want to go because of maybe safety concerns, because of the bubble environment, and then now these guys speaking out because they feel that basketball will take away from what's going on around the world right now.
Well, you also gotta remember too, these guys are in the communities walking around on the front lines with these people. So, or not with these people, with the people, and you kind of put them all in Orlando, and you kind of take them away from being in the front lines. So they want to make sure that they're like, hey, we still want this to happen as much as they do, but at the same time, it's like, but yeah, we gotta play the game, but we also want to make sure like what the real problem and task on hand. We want to make sure we're still on point, and you put all these guys with a big platform together, which is not a bad thing. It really isn't. It's a really good thing too, but at the same time, you gotta make sure that the real task on hand is not about. I mean, yes, the championship, that's the game, that's the sports side of it, but down the road, the change that we all want. So we gotta make sure the NBA is still on point with the guys and what they want to do, because I think everybody in the league feels the same way. I think this is the one time in the league where everybody has one feeling towards things, and it's right now. So I applaud Avery Bradley for what he said. I applaud Kyrie Irving for parts of what he said too, and even Dwight Howard. And I know there's probably other guys in the NBA that agree with these guys, but they're not going to come out and say it. And I know LeBron said, let's just go play. I don't know his exact quotes, but I'm just going to reference in the way how I can remember it. And I know Pat Beverly said, he said, we're hooping, we're hooping. Okay, but just because LeBron said he's going to play basketball doesn't mean LeBron doesn't have a big plan. Remember, him and Trae Young just came up with this great opportunity for everybody. And just because LeBron said he wants to play basketball doesn't mean that that's still not on his mind. LeBron, in this case, if he says they're going to play basketball, they're going to play basketball. And I'm pretty sure LeBron's not going to. If LeBron didn't think basketball wasn't the point right now, or didn't want to play, he wouldn't have said, we're not going to go back. But LeBron believes that they still can make a change while playing. So I think I go with LeBron. And I still think, and I believe that change can happen through all those guys together.
Definitely, no, like we've mentioned before, the goal of this show really uniting through sports, and sports in a
Yeah.
way really shows unity for people. So, what better way than going to Orlando? I understand it's a bubble and there's some concerns on that side of things, but what better way than going there to utilize your platform together? I understand guys like Steph Curry, Klay Thompson went out and did the protesting with a lot of people on the front lines. A lot of other players have. Jaylen Brown, who drove down to Atlanta for the protest. So I think it's all great stuff they're doing right now, actively protesting. And when you're protesting, it's a group of people trying to get something done. When you have the opportunity to amplify your platform and talk to the front line and understand people, you should take advantage of that. So I think that the players that care about the social injustice, if they really care, they will go to Orlando. They will utilize their platform. Perhaps they could have daily, talks with the media or whoever. They can constantly be wearing shirts like the I Can't Breathe shirts, things like that. What better way to spread awareness that way? Yes, going out and protesting helps, and you'll get the media buzz for a day or two. But imagine from July to October, constantly the media having that reminder of not only basketball, but more specifically too for a lot of the black players as well, showing that themselves, showing that they are human, showing that they care about these causes and spreading it. Even for any NBA player or any coach, especially guys like Greg Popovich, who are able to utilize the platform and speak the way he has. Those are some things I think that are important, and those are going to be constant reminders from July to October for anyone watching the NBA. So I think that it would be stupid to not go if you care about social injustice. If that's your concern, that social injustice is going to be ignored during the NBA, I think that you're not opening up the potential that this really could be. If you're doing it for selfish reasons, again, I'm not going to mention Kyrie Irving having a ulterior motive. I think that he does care about social injustice, but I think he should open his eyes up a little bit and understand the potential that this could be going to Orlando. And at the same time, I do respect the players that don't feel comfortable going, but that's an entirely different conversation.
One last thing. Like we said yesterday, together. That's the way we're gonna do it. That's the way we're gonna conquer the unfortunate time in history that we thought or we hoped that was gone. That's still in this country today. And like me and you, we always preach together, unity, unity, unity. And thank you.
Right. So now let's shift over to another part of the NBA, Gavin. I shared this with you earlier. Any player that chooses to not go, whether for safety reasons or not being comfortable or for the reasons that Kyrie Irving does not feel comfortable going, they must notify their teams and the NBA by June 24th. That's 1 week from today. Gavin, let's get some of your initial thoughts after hearing that news.
That's not enough time. Look, these guys they have families. All right, let's put that out there first. They have families. All right. We talk about Carmelo Anthony, who was up in the air about going and not going. You can't just say, all right, Melo, you got June 24th to tell me if you want to come or not. That's not enough time. If I'm the NBA, I'm like July 1st is the deadline. Like the original for free agency. For me, it'll be July 1st because that's 2 weeks away almost. And by that time, you hopefully have a great understanding of what you want to do and hopefully how you feel. It's great that they don't get penalized for not wanting to go because of the virus or other issues too, or just personal matters. But to put a deadline on them, that's and a week away, that's not good enough because a lot of players are still up in the air about going, and it's not easy. It's not like, hey, I'll be back tomorrow like they always do. Come back whether it's a home game or away. These guys are gone for a good couple months, so you're playing away from whoever they have to be. And the key to mind too, they're in this bubble. From what we were told and before versus last night, before they were told the park was not, you couldn't go on none of the rides of the park. But now last night apparently there's gonna be some entertainment, but it kind of makes these guys on an island. It feels like, and I feel like that's another part of Kyrie Irving's thing. Is like the bubble too. Not a lot of people are sold on a bubble, and then now the NBA has this anonymous line where you can call if you see something or an NBA player doing not the guidelines. You can call and snitch almost. And you know how easy that might be for people who, let's say, aren't Lakers fans to be like, hey, we got LeBron not doing the guidelines or what you guys said. So I don't like this at all. I don't like the timeline of it. I think it should be another week at least. And I just don't like the bubble at all. But if there has to be modifications, I think the timeline will have to be it.
I think that the timeline is a good idea. I understand that a week could be too little, but think about the NBA teams that are ready to go. Think about the coaching staffs. If a key player or even a role player is on the fence about going, I want to know at least a month out. We have the 2-week quarantine period, the transfer period, which is all going to take the next month or so. That's why July 31st, when the original idea came out, the date seems so far off because there's steps that have to be taken. Guys have to condition in the isolation in the bubble. So there are some things that are provided, 24-hour amenities, some things for a lot of these players that are still up and coming and are on their first contracts, specifically their rookie deals, a lot of rookies as well. These are guys who are getting great treatment and they get to go play the sport you love and get paid. It's a paradise. I understand the setbacks. I understand that there are going to be players that don't want to leave their families. That's okay. You have 7 days to decide. You've known since earlier this month when the proposal came out that July 31st, the season is going to begin, or July 30th, the resuming of the season, that is. So I think that it's a great idea. And because it's not necessarily about the players, and I understand that it's a tough decision to make, especially when you have a family, but you have to think about the teams as well. If Furkan Korkmaz, for example, a role player off the bench, isn't going to come, maybe you want to go pick up J.R. Smith or something and have enough time to get him conditioned, get him up to speed. So for the team's sake, I'm going to say that this is a good idea, and I like it. And again, we both agree that the NBA is doing as much as they can. You suggest extending another week. It's not the end of the world if they do, but I don't think it's unfair to have it a week out from now to let the players decide.
I mean, hey, this is a big decision. It could be, I don't want to say life-changing, but it could be life-changing for a good couple months, especially with families. If you have like a newborn. I remember in baseball, Zach Wheeler said he wasn't going to go to Arizona. This is when they were talking about coming back. He said he wasn't going to go to Arizona because he's going to have a newborn, and it's not fair to his wife that he leaves to go to Arizona and and can't come back. But I think the timeline should at least be July 1st. I think June 24th, and they announced it. That's not fair to a lot of NBA players, as far as the teams that are going.
Right, and so I think that having a timeline for the players to decide. I'm not fully familiar with when the incubation period starts with the 2-week quarantine and when you send them to Orlando, but at least a few days before that, you have to know when these players are going to show up. It's not fair to the team. It's not fair to the players who want to go. It's not fair to the coaches. But most importantly, so you can be prepared. Like I said, if a role player off the bench that's a shooter is not going to be willing to go, we have to know as soon as possible. And I get it. It's a big decision. Like you mentioned with Zach Wheeler with his family, these players have a choice. And what I love about this thing, and Gavin, I know we agree on this for sure,
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is that they're not going to get punished. You don't get punished if you don't want to go. I think it's a great scenario. I think a week is enough time. If there is going to be, if you want to extend it to 2 weeks, I'm not opposed to it. I don't think it makes a big difference, but at least it gives teams plenty of time to be able to go out there, make the decisions they need to, make sure that they're set up for success, and more importantly, making sure that everybody that is coming down is comfortable and everything can work out smoothly for the team.
Well, I just want to make sure, and just my last one right here. I want to make sure that I'm not saying like a week before or like a game before, like, hey guys, I'm not coming. Like that's not right for the teammates, but also I don't think it's right for people to the NBA to be like, all right, this day you got to tell me right now if you want to come. That like July 1st is like a fair enough time. Like, hey, I'm not coming, and B like and they also gives enough time for your team to prepare, and also gives enough time for your family to prepare. Sometimes you gotta make arrangements. If you're, if you and your partner split and you have a kid, you gotta make arrangements for them to be with that other person that you may or may not have a great relationship with. I think the timeline should be July 1st, but hey.
Definitely seems that we both agree on the reasoning behind it. The date can definitely fluctuate depending on what happens. We'll see as this continues to progress if they're going to move the timeline if players become more vocal. I think the reason that it is so tight and there is going to become flexibility, in my opinion, it will get guys to be vocal so that they can get a better idea of, okay, you have a hard deadline. You've been talking about not coming because of certain issues. Let's see if you're going to stick to it. I think that's what the NBA is trying to get at. And most importantly, right before we get on to the next topic, they're not going to be punished, which I think is a great thing as well, considering the circumstances.
Yeah.
All right, great. So now we're going to get on to our next topic, shifting it over to the NFL. We mentioned this briefly yesterday that Brandon Brooks, the starting Eagles right guard, suffered a torn Achilles. So bringing Gavin back in, we touched on this very little yesterday, but we have to talk about it again because it's very important. Replacing the best, arguably the best guard in the league. A bunch of different options. I'll kick off with this. I read a nice article this morning. I've been doing whatever I can to make sure that we're getting a good understanding of where we are situationally. We talked about yesterday how the run game can be affected, pass protection, some of the other things that are important. You have a guy like Miles Sanders, who's an up-and-coming running back who still needs to have some of those holes pointed out for him, but he's really progressing well. So there's a couple of different options this team can do. Two specifically. Number one is internal. Number two, obviously, external. So internally, I think that this team is quite well at the offensive line depth. Again, Howie Roseman, the entire Eagles organization, they emphasize depth at the offensive line position. Mm-hmm. That includes Jack Driscoll, the out of Auburn, who was a tackle. I think he could do a very good job at retaining that position and holding it down until we have someone back. And I also think that we could have Matt Pryor filling the job, who did it in the end of the Giants game and did it in the playoffs. We have plenty of time to get there for these guys to get stronger and get in that mentality of, okay, I'm starting versus being on the bubble. Talking to a few guys, a former guard from the Saints, I don't remember his name, or even bringing back the bodyguard, Jason Peters. So, in my opinion, I think we should stay internal. We've built depth at the offensive line position for a reason. We've had success with it. My pick personally is Matt Pryor. Jack Driscoll could definitely win that position, but I think it should be a competition between the two of them for that right guard spot.
Well, I don't think we go external. There's no need to bring anybody else in. Plus, everyone that's out there now are not the best, because if they were the best, they would have been picked up already. I think it's perfect to bring in someone young like Matt, like the guy you named, or the other one, and you try to work on them, because at some point they're going to have to play anyway, whether someone else goes down. So why not start them off right now and see who's the best? You got a long time before the season starts, and we don't know about training camp. That could be a conversation for another day. But to bring someone else in, there's no need for that. Jason Pierce, we talked about it yesterday. I love Jason Pierce, the bodyguard, but yes, last year wasn't his best. We had a lot of false starts with Jason Peters, and he got beat on the left side a lot too. And that's no disrespect to Jason Peters. He's probably going to go down, in my opinion, as one of the best left tackles the Eagles will ever have. And I just think if we start one of the young guys now, it will be a ground change. You never know. If we find someone we like in this young guy, when Jason Kelsey has to go, maybe we can slide them to center and see how they play. We never know. That's the best part about offensive linemen, in my opinion, especially when they're guards. They always fluctuate around what they can and can't do. Like there's never one spot where they like, no, we can't do that. I wouldn't put a guard on a tackle. I'm gonna do that, but like I feel like we stay internal, we work with them throughout the whole and develop them because development is gonna be key down the road.
Definitely. Why else would you build depth? I mean, our depth's been tested so many times at every position on this team. We had the backup quarterback win a Super Bowl with us. So I think, funny enough, it's something that is so important for this team. It's something that they emphasize: offensive line, offensive line, offensive line. And so you'll get teams
Yeah,
like the Houston Texans, Seattle Seahawks. Some teams that have great success without a great offensive line. We still do have a top tier right tackle in Lane Johnson, Jason Kelsey, the best center in the NFL, and Andre Dillard, who is very promising, Isaac Seumalo. The guard positions are good. They're not fantastic like they would be with Brandon Brooks in there, but they're good. And for a guy like Carson Wentz, the pressure should not be on him to that point. I think that this should not affect his performance at all. The only thing I could really see it affecting is running the ball on that side of the field. But I have
yeah.
confidence that Matt Pryor or Mark Driscoll can come up, really grow, and really become who they need to be. So those are some of my final thoughts on that. Let's now get down to our next item on the agenda. We spoke about this on Monday. We talked about the possibility of what teams are going to look like this season. So we talked about whether teams are going to have a better record or a worse record. And one of the teams that we touched on, one of my couple teams that I think are basement dwellers this year, including the Carolina Panthers and a few others, is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, before we get started on that, let's talk about some background on Gardner Minshew, a 6th-round pick, came in when Nick Foles got hurt in week 1. Played really well, actually. Had the best passer rating among rookie quarterbacks. He had a great touchdown to interception ratio, the best among rookies as well. Could have been argued to be part of the Rookie of the Year conversation. I mean, Josh Jacobs really and Kyler Murray were running away with it at that point. But I think he's definitely got a lot of talent. Now, the question is, what can he do? Can he carry this team? They lost Jalen Ramsey last year. Their front office is really destroying them right now. Doug Marrone really has lost his locker room, it seems like. Leonard Fournette seems like he's on his way out. I keep seeing every day possible trade rumors to the Eagles even. So, Gavin, let's start with you because I know you have a very strong opinion on the Jacksonville Jaguars this year. Can Gardner Minshew carry them?
No, he cannot. And look, first of all, about the whole Leonard Fournette to the Eagles, I don't know if I really want Leonard Fournette. He hasn't really done anything since his rookie season, since I've seen him in here. But that could be for another day. Look, Gardner Minshew is a special talent, right? We talked about the mustache, his games. He had some really good games this year. But and to carry them all the way to the playoffs, I don't think so. I don't think he has enough pieces around him to do it. And I think he still has to develop. Now, if you were to give me, if I see something that I like let's say he does a lot this year, and let's say they miss playoffs, they go 8-8. That gives you a little bit better hope to say, like, well, wait a minute, Gardner Minshew may have a chance to take them to the playoffs next year because they go 8-8. They might need another piece here and there. But also, there's a lot of things going on, as you touched on, that has nothing to do with Gardner Minshew himself. You got the front office is atrocious and a disgrace because they don't know what they're doing. Their coach needs to be fired because you arguably got into an argument with one of the best corners in all of football, which we could talk about another day. And you lost Calais Campbell on the defense. Leonard Fournette is on the decline. He does not look motivated to run anymore like we used to see him to do. So we don't know what the future holds for the Jacksonville Jaguars, but we do know this man, Gardner Minshew, I guess, is the centerpiece. They got rid of Nick Foles. So do I believe they'll go to the playoffs anytime soon? Probably not. I have to see something. I think they need a whole front office change with a coach to start. But I just don't think there's enough there around Gardner Minshew to take him. We could say the same thing about Drew Lock, or no, we said the same thing about other quarterbacks too. Um, I don't know at this point. I don't believe in Minshew at all. You know, he had his own magical games, 3 4 games, but that's pretty much all I saw last year.
They'll be one of those teams that can beat the bad teams and then struggle against the good teams. So I think that their division is getting more difficult. Obviously, the Texans still, the Colts are up and coming again. So I think that their division is definitely going to be difficult. They're probably going to be sitting fourth place, 5-11, 6-10 at best. I think that he's a franchise quarterback. I think he is the right guy for that team. They need to work on the offensive line. They need to work on the defensive side of the ball. They were in the AFC Championship 3 years ago with Blake Bortles. They had a fantastic secondary and a great front four. What happened to that? That's a bad front office for you. So bad front offices don't win games. Something about it. You lose good players. And so I don't know, Gardner Minshew, even he could do pretty well and become a free agency grab a few years down the road if he doesn't pick up his fifth-year option. I know he's only going into his sophomore season, but we can see what happens with him. I think out of all the sophomores, I think he is going to definitely be taking a little bit of a decline despite his good numbers last year. He's a smart decision maker. But like you said, yeah, I mean, there's just not enough around him to really emphasize the fact that they could be a good team. They're not going to be a good team this year.
So let me ask you this question, and I know you want to move on after this. If you are the Jags front office or the Jags owner, what would you get? Who would you get rid of first? What would you clean first? Would you take out the coaching? Would you get rid of your coach first, or would you clean front office first? What are you doing?
You got to start in the front office. You hear all this drama with this team. No one wants to go there. And it's not because of the coach you don't want to go there. A lot of coaches are bad, but their players respect them. And so with the front office, you don't want to go if your front office is terrible. Think of the Knicks right now. I mean, why do you think the Knicks can't track town? It's New York City. It's Madison Square Garden, right? There's a reason for that. So you got to start with the front office. You got to really start with at the owners. They have to make these key decisions. And so general management, things like that. The reason that teams like the Eagles and the Patriots and other teams are able to repeat success, Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick are running that team, keeping it stable. Obviously, they continue to win, so people want to go there. In Philadelphia, Howie Roseman, even though he's making questionable moves, Doug Peterson, even though he's done some things that we don't love as a play caller, he's still a respectable guy. People want to play for him. People fight for him the way they do at the end of the season. So when you face adversity, how are you going to be able to come back and rise? And that's why teams with poor front offices can't do well. It starts at the very top. Try to start recruiting guys. Maybe you can start doing what Miami did, except that when you tank, you don't need to worry about drafting a quarterback. You can draft maybe a top-tier offensive lineman in the first round, a good wide receiver, a guy Travis Etienne who can really do it all from their backfield. So I think that they really should consider doing a tank, but at least they have their quarterback. And I think that I do think Gardner Minshew can be the Jaguars' answer, but they need more talent around him, and it might start with the rebuilding, especially from the very top.
Hey, they might even tank to get Trevor Lawrence. I know we're talking about Gardner Minshew, but if Gardner Minshew doesn't prove that could be their guy at going on moving forward, I think they look into a quarterback, and I think they also clean house as well.
Definitely. I believe the mock drafts do right now have the Jaguars holding the first overall pick. We'll be doing a mock draft for with our predictions and all that as we get into the football season. A lot more exciting stuff coming up. Obviously, we just had a draft this year, so still quite a way from there. But we're gonna continue talking about football here, despite being the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show. We always do hit our hometown teams. Starting with the Philadelphia Eagles. If you're familiar with Adam Rank NFL, he does his rankings every year. And on Snapchat, if you take a look at the bottom, he actually is on there today doing the rankings. The Philadelphia Eagles on his rankings are 13-3, first in the NFC East, first in the NFC. So, Gavin, I'll start with you. Are these expectations for this team too high, and why?
I like Adam Rank today. I didn't like him during the year last year that much. But look, Adam Rank is not wrong. I believe this team, if healthy, and I put that in quotations, if healthy, they could do what they did in 2017. Now, remember in the 2017 season, they had guys like Aaron Blunt who helped Carson Wentz on the red zone because we missed that a lot. And we also had a healthy Corey Clement and Jay Ajayi and so on and so forth. I do see this team going 13-2, and call me crazy. And I know the loss of Brandon Brooks is going to hurt, but think about it. This secondary from 2017 to now is better than what it was in 2017. Also, too, I think hot take. I think Carson Wentz will tap back into that should have been, I'm angry when I say this should have been, MVP season for Carson Wentz. I do see 13-2 being a possibility. We do have a tough schedule, maybe even 12-4, but or 13-3, excuse me. But I do see 12-4 as well. But I think this team could do it. Like I said, the schedule matches up. It's a little difficult, but we have some of those tough games at home this year, so we don't know. But I do like Adam Rank saying they could do it again, and I believe they could.
I do think the expectations are way too high. I see this team as a 9-7, maybe could be a 10-6 team. But here, let's think about the reality. How many games in the past 2 years have been one possession? How many games have been just shouldn't have happened? They should have won, drop passes, obviously things like that. We know. But I'm talking about games against the Lions. Like, how do you lose to the Lions? The Eagles find a way to lose to teams every year that they shouldn't lose to. It wouldn't shock me if they drop one to the Bengals or the Browns this year. I mean, those are some situations that they can go out and they can beat, like the 49ers on the road, and then they could drop one to the Bengals. So, I mean, it wouldn't shock me. So, this is still a rebuilding year. I said this in week 3 last year. This team is too young in some areas and too old in some areas. Howie Roseman said, we're not going to rebuild. We're going to retool. We're going to get ourselves some guys that are more talented, that are younger, and so on. I think that K'Von Wallace does take over that strong safety spot after the season. He grows and develops this year. We'll see how Mills can do. You're right. The defense is substantially better. The offense has substantially more weapons. Miles Sanders, I expect to be a huge breakout star this year. But the schedule is still very tough. You're playing the 49ers and the entire NFC West. You're playing the first-place teams in the entire NFC because Carson Wentz is just that great at carrying this team to the one spot in the NFC East. I also think that it's pretty difficult that you're playing Steelers, Bengals, Browns. It's not that I don't have faith in Carson Wentz. It's that I don't have faith in his skill players yet. I also don't have faith in his defense. How many times have we had a lockdown corner and it didn't work out too well? How many times have we had what should have been a good defense and we didn't? How about those games where you only give up 17 points to the red-hot Russell Wilson, and then you let Ryan Fitzpatrick get all over you and route the scoreboard? Those games are going to happen this year. We're still going to have some injuries. Jalen Reagor needs at least a year to develop, I think. I don't think he fits in right away. I think he needs some time to develop. We'll see if Greg Ward really is the answer. We still need another wide receiver. We need a true wide receiver one. And when I think of a wide receiver one, I think of a 6'1" guy, give or take, a really good route runner, not a burner, but I think of Amari Cooper as my ideal wide receiver one. And so like this team, as LaDainian Tomlinson said, yeah, and this is a team that's a track team. So if we had CeeDee Lamb this year, I feel a little different. And it's not. I don't think that Reagor is a good player. He's your burner in the future. And this is pretty much it for Deshaun Jackson. We still have Zach Ertz, who's a great route runner and has the best hands for the tight end position, and Dallas Goedert. But simply put, the defense, the linebackers need to grow a little more. I think that the front four is going to be good. But like before, I think Fletcher Cox might not be good early. That's why we went out and got Javon Hargrave, because it takes Fletcher Cox 8 games to be ready for some reason until he starts making a difference. Brandon Graham, he had a couple of sacks last year that were pretty good, but most of them were in the Jets game. So I think that his stats are a little padded. I'm still worried about some of those little things that I try to do my best to take note of, because on paper, you're right, Gavin, this should be a good team this year. And we have a great coaching staff, a great front office, a great quarterback. I see them going 9-7 and making the playoffs. I'm not sure how far they'll get, but I don't think they're going to be a 13-3 one seed, slam dunk in any way whatsoever, simply because they're just too young. They need another year to develop, another year to grow. They could shock me. It'd be great if they do, but I'm not putting too high expectations on this team because they still have a lot of guys who need to develop. Now, if K'Von Wallace comes out and really shows himself as a true strong safety, a true safety on top of your depth chart, that's going to be great. If the offensive line is able to hold together without Brandon Brooks this year, that'd be great. Carson Wentz, who, really, in my opinion, never left his MVP form. He just had a few bad decisions in key moments of games, more specifically 2 seasons ago than this last season. But simply put, this team still needs to develop, and they need another year to do that, and then they'll be back to where they should be. And I think that potentially 2 years down the road, Carson Wentz finally gets a ring of his own and is able to fully erase the shadow of Nick Foles. I just don't think this year is the year, though.
I just want to go back to one of the losses. We talk about how you lose to like the Dolphins and Lions. I'm quick to. I never criticize Carson Wentz that much during losses, especially when it's like large points were given up. I always look at Jim Schwartz. Look, I've been calling for this man to get his job taken and I don't like people getting fired, but I never seen when you lose to the worst, arguably one of the worst teams in the league, two of them, in between the Lions and Dolphins, who had top 5 picks, or around had top 5 picks. And you give a large amount of points to them. How does this man still keep his job here? I'm curious. I want to know. That could be for another day. I'm not sure, but that's always been my calling card. And plus, Doug Peterson not running the ball that much too. But you look at games where the defense was dominant and they were running the ball a lot too. That you could say that was our kryptonite, not running the ball and bad play and bad defensive play calling, or just bad defense all around. You remember the Buffalo game? We ran, and Miles Sanders ran all over Buffalo's defense. The same thing you could say about in Week 16 versus Dallas too. So at the end of the day, you got to look at not running the ball and Jim Schwartz and a bad defensive play call and just bad defense all around.
I agree, and those little things are the reason I think we're going 9-7 this year. But we'll bring it down again this week as we go on. We are going to shift to our next topic here. We have another guest on today. We are breaking down the NCAA, the return for college athletes, the return for college students. But more importantly, we're also going to talk about Penn State as well. We're going to be having a Penn State student, the host of the SNS show, Jake Starr. Jake, welcome to the show. How are you doing today? All right, so we got you on. We have a few different things we want to break down with you. So first off, what are some of your initial thoughts? We do know Penn State is returning to school this coming semester. You want to break down a little bit for us what the return plan looks like?
Yeah, so Penn State's bringing back it's a phased approach. So phase 1 started, I think, June 8th, and that's 75 student athletes, mostly football players. And then phase 2, I think, starts next week, and they'll bring a couple more guys back. Like I know Micah Parsons will be heading back, I believe, Monday. So, the guys are up there. They're quarantining, getting their coronavirus test. And then once they, all come back negative, hopefully, and get through that 14-day quarantine, they'll be good to go, and they'll start summer camp. And hopefully if things go well, they're able to, be ready for the season. Because I know University of Houston actually has shut down their summer program already because they had 6 positive cases. So we'll have to see what happens, and we'll have to see how they, find a way to contain and isolate any positive cases.
Definitely, and so we'll continue to break it down more as we continue. A lot of schools really seem like they are encouraging to come back to the athletic programs. We know that does contribute a lot to the money they bring in for them. So let's go over to Penn State now. Let's discuss some of the sports side of it. Penn State basketball, what are the expectations this year? I'd say we're middle of the road, a little bit more positive than not. They broke through the top 25 rankings at 1 point higher than Villanova here in southeastern PA. And then what happened? They really started to fall off at the end. I'd say for you were saved from a potentially upsetting March Madness matchup, which they had high expectations going in. First time in the tournament in a couple of years. What happened with Penn State basketball this year?
I mean, in terms of the expectations going into this season, if you watch the end of their season, the 18-19 season, February of 19, they were hot. They beat a ranked Maryland team by like 20 points at home. So, there were high expectations going into this season. Lamar Stevens is back for his senior year. All the younger guys had more experience. They had some sharpshooters. So there was expectation, but the expectation lied along the lines of 8-9 seed in the tournament. But, they got to a point in February where they're sitting at, number 9 in the country, and you're thinking, can they make a Final Four run? Obviously, kind of fell off. I don't want to say I wasn't a believer in this team, but I always kind of expected they would come back down to earth. And I think that, towards the end of the season, they kind of regressed back towards where we expected, to that 7-8 seed spot. But, who knows? Maybe they could have made a run. But, I mean, it just sucks that, Lamar Stevens, that group who, deserved an opportunity to, make an NCAA tournament appearance, just had it taken away from them after, really a good season.
Definitely unfortunate. And sticking with basketball, we know they were at the top. Maryland, obviously. Ohio State started to scale back after a hot start to the season. Who were some of the teams that you project to be in the Final Four? We know we didn't really get an opportunity to see an official bracket, but definitely some thoughts on where teams were going. We know Duke obviously is a team every year that gets to the Final Four. This year, not really as big of a year for them, but still definitely up there. UNC dropped off this year. So who do you think could have potentially been in the Final Four and maybe even a finals matchup?
I mean, it's tough. It's tough because we didn't really get to see any of the conference tournaments. It's hard to say, X team was going into the tournament hot, but I mean, I know Seton Hall, they were a strong pick to make a run. Duke's another team I had up there. Kansas, another potential Final Four team. And, you look at the Big Ten, a couple of strong teams. You look at Michigan was so-so this year, but you look at, kind of a Ohio State maybe, but, I kind of look at, Seton Hall could have been a surprise team. Then you look at a Duke, at Kansas. Those are some of the teams I probably expected to make a deep run.
Definitely not. Unfortunately, we don't find out now. We will next year. I think March Madness will definitely have a much more substantial meaning next year. What's the future outlook, do you think, for Penn State basketball? What are some of your thoughts early, obviously, but based on for next season?
I mean, I'm not entirely high on them. I've never been, I like Patrick Chambers. I think he's a great guy. I just have never thought he's a great coach. I don't love the way he runs his offense, but just really, the goal for Penn State's obviously the tournament, but it's going to be tough. You lose Lamar Stevens, you lose Mike Watkins. You're going to look to guys like Miles Dredd, Myron Jones, Seth Lundy, Isaiah Brockington. You're going to look to those guys to kind of step up this year, and you're going to look for a guy to kind of take that Lamar Stevens leadership role. Like, I think they have a lot of solid pieces, but I don't know if they have the guy yet. Can Delco Zone, John Harrow step up and make an impact? But I think if I were to tell you right now, I think the ceiling for next year's team, probably NIT. The floor is probably about a 500 record. I mean, if someone steps up, if Miles Dredd somehow becomes a superstar, they can make the tournament. But from what I'm seeing right now, I think the expectation is the NIT tournament.
Got it. Definitely more to see as that continues to progress and the next season gets started. We still have quite some time to get there. But one thing that's definitely coming up soon is football. College football, very popular. Big Ten football, very popular. Penn State, for the first time in a few years, sat at number 4 in the ranks. Dropped a game to Minnesota, obviously scaled back a little bit. Dropped an additional game to Ohio State. They had a pretty good year last year, considering that they had just lost their best quarterback in arguably Penn State history in Trace McSorley. And having Sean Clifford come in, no one really knew for sure what he would look like. It seemed like they fit really well last year. The defense, you have your do-it-all linebacker and Micah Parsons coming back this year. I would say so myself, too. I think that they have some high expectations. Let's get some of your thoughts as a Penn State insider.
No, there's definitely high expectations, no doubt. I think that if you look at Penn State's roster, really outside of corner and wide receiver, they're set. I mean, the offensive line's experienced. Sean Clifford's got a year under his belt. Their running back room might be the best in the country. But you look at tight end, you have a potential first-round pick in Pat Freiermuth. Defensively, the linebacker's going to be great with Brandon Smith, Lance Dixon, Jesse Luketa, Micah Parsons. Defensive line, I know they lost Etor Gross Matos and Robert Windsor, but there's still good depth there. Just the only areas of concern are really cornerback and wide receiver. If they can find a way to shore those areas up, I think they have a chance to make a real run. Corner, you're looking young this year. You're looking Tariq Castro, Fields, Keaton Ellis. Can one of those guys step up and be a true number one? Same thing on the other side of wide receiver. Jahan Dotson, has high expectations this year. He's the guy. He's going to be the number one receiver. He's no KJ Hamler, but can he be a guy who can have 65 catches, 800 yards, 5-6 touchdowns this year? And then behind Jahan Dotson, you're looking to, Cam Sullivan-Brown. You're looking to a bunch of young guys, John Dunmore. It's basically Jahan Dotson and a bunch of redshirt freshmen. So can somebody step up? Can somebody be a speed threat? Sean Clifford likes to drill the ball down the field. They got a new offensive coordinator this year. They're going to want to push the football. They want to get in their playmakers' hands. They have a guy who can go over the top against the defense. And those are the questions right now. But, I think right now, if what we see from Penn State, you're probably about a 9-10 win team. But they can shore up those two areas. I think that they have a chance to compete in the Big Ten.
And my final question, I know Gavin has a few as well. Ohio State. That's the decisive factor if they win every other game. Obviously, in order to get to the Big Ten championship and have an opportunity, you're going to have to either beat Ohio State or they have to drop at least one more game than you. Can Penn State actually be a serious contender for the Big Ten? And can they win against Ohio State?
Look, the Big Ten East goes through Ohio State. And obviously, that's what Penn State's got to do. Obviously, they got to go through Michigan first. They play in Ann Arbor this year, a location they've struggled their last couple of trips there. But just say let's say Penn State beats Michigan. Ohio State's the pinnacle of the Big Ten. They're, James Franklin said they're an elite program. Penn State right now is a great program. And until they can beat Ohio State, they're not going to be an elite program. Look, I give them credit. They hang with Ohio State every year, every year since, I think, 2015 they got blown out. But every year aside from that, they've been close. And, last year Ohio State, without a doubt, was 4 or 5 times better than Penn State. And, Penn State found a way to keep it close. It's just about but it's not about keeping it close anymore. It's about finding a way to get over the hump. And it's not going to be easy. I mean, Ohio State has a Heisman contender in Justin Fields. How is Penn State going to stop him? I mean, they faced him last year, so hopefully there's some experience behind that. But I think that, if there's a window for Penn State to beat Ohio State, I think the window is this season.
What's going on, Jake? Oh, go ahead.
What's up, Gavin?
So, we talked about going back to Penn State football. So Maryland, they go into Maryland last year and they just destroy Maryland. So this year, Maryland has Tua's little brother, who is arguably better than Tua, and they also got Alabama's offensive coordinator, or a coordinator that he is used to working with. Do you think Penn State will struggle against Tua's arguably better than Tua's brother, like Tua's brother?
I don't. I really don't, because, I don't want to say he's not better than Tua, but there's a reason why, one of the best college football coaches of all time, is turning to Mac Jones at Alabama, not Tua's younger brother. I mean, look, Tagovailoa he's a good quarterback. I mean, is he developed yet? Not at all. But look, Penn State plays Maryland at home this year. I'm really not worried about that matchup. Penn State has really had no issue handling Maryland, since they've joined the Big Ten. The last time Maryland's kept it close was 2015 when Christian Hackenberg and Penn State went down and beat them 31-30. Since then, it's really been a completely one-sided matchup. So, look, even getting Tagovailoa at Maryland, I'm really not worried about what the Terrapins have. Look, to build a good program, it's not an overnight thing. Maryland's not going to be a team who went, 500 one year and comes back and is a 10-game winner this year. I know someone like Minnesota did it, but in Maryland, I mean, Maryland's a hotbed for recruiting, and you still have schools like Clemson, Penn State, Temple pulling from those areas. Until Maryland can really dominate the Delmarva, the Silver Spring, Maryland area, they're not going to be an elite program. I think that can they get there? Sure, but it's not going to be in 2020. Maybe in 2022 we can come back and have this conversation again, but I just don't see them taking a big step forward this year.
Right. And that also ties in with my next question for you is, so we talk about how big Penn State is at home, and the games, the whiteout games, the homecoming games. How do you think the possibility of not having fans is going to affect the team, how it plays, especially during like those so-called big games they have?
It's tough. It's definitely tough. I mean, Governor Wolf said that in Green you can do 50% capacity, so hopefully we don't see a big spike in the state, and we can still find a way to get, even if it's 40 or 50,000, even if we just get students in the stadium, just something. But, it goes both ways. We talk about having the fans, but at the same time, when Penn State travels to Michigan, if there's lack of fans there, it benefits Penn State. So, it's one of those things where you got to look at how your schedule plays out. And the fact that Penn State, has Michigan on the road, Ohio State at home. I mean, obviously, you lose the benefit of the home field advantage against Ohio State, but you gain it against a Michigan team where you struggled in Ann Arbor. So I feel like that it's not a big downside for any team because it kind of goes both ways. Look, if Penn State had Ohio State, Michigan, and Michigan State at home and had to go travel and play, Rutgers and Maryland, it's a disadvantage for Penn State because those better teams are coming into a quieter Beaver Stadium. Penn State is going to, more traditionally quieter stadiums. But the fact that it's balanced, where Penn State hosts Ohio State, Penn State has to go to Michigan, I kind of think they cancel each other out. So I'm not too worried about the lack of crowd noise, so to speak.
Awesome. And one last thing. Me and Zach, in a recent episode, we made our Heisman predictions. And I want to get, do you have a early prediction, a dark sleeper? You got any?
I mean, there's a couple candidates out there. I mean, I think Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence should be at the top of anyone's list. Oklahoma State's Hubbard. I think he's another Heisman candidate. Then you look around. I mean, if you want to look at Penn State specifically, I think I mean, Sean Clifford, if he has a great season, sure. But how about Journey Brown? He's a name that's kind of gone under the radar. I mean, I don't think he's going to win it, but he could be someone considered. But if I had to give you my Heisman pick right now, I'm probably going with Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence coming in second. Those are probably the two best quarterbacks in the country, and I really just don't see much competition for those two.
Awesome. I said the same thing. I feel like Justin Fields. I can kind of reminds me like a Lamar Jackson, but just a better passer too.
I agree.
He didn't throw that many interceptions last year, and when you want to get technical too, in his bowl game where he played against Clemson, he didn't really lose to Clemson. Really, it was kind of more one of those situations where it was like a mess up almost. And Clemson has one of the best defenses, arguably in all college football. And he was kind of and he was putting points on. At one point, they were leading. So I don't know. But I do go with Justin Fields as well.
I agree. And I think when you look at that Clemson game, I mean, Justin Fields put the ball where it had to be. The receiver went the wrong way. So you can't put that on him. But no, I like the Lamar Jackson comparison a lot. I think he's definitely a more polished passer than Lamar Jackson. I think, second year in Ryan Day's system is really going to benefit him a lot.
Awesome.
All right, and then Jake, we're going to let you go in just a quick second. I do have one more thing, a little stir up the pot. 2-3 years down the road, is Penn State a legitimate threat to the University of Georgia for RBU?
Yes, they are. You look at the depth that they have right now. You look at this year. I mean, it's going to shock some people, but this year's Penn State running back room is the most talented running back room they've ever had. More talented than the Saquon Barkley, Miles Sanders running back room. You got Journey Brown, who I think is going to run for 1,000 yards this year. You got two lethal sophomores in Devin Ford and Noah Cain. You look further down the depth chart, you got Keziah Holmes, a true freshman running back who I think can make an impact. And then you got some more, young running backs rolling in the pipeline. So I think we come back in 2022, 2023. I think Penn State is going to not just challenge, but pass Georgia in terms of running back university.
Two things. So we always know Georgia as the running back school and a few linebackers here and there. Georgia produced Todd Gurley, Sony Michel, Nick Chubb, DeAndre Swift, who we have to see this year. So my question for you is, you really do think that they can challenge? And you said Journey Brown, you think he's going to run for 1,000 yards. Do you think Journey Brown has the expectations of Miles Sanders and like a Saquon Barkley type, or do you think he has his own little style and way?
I think his own little style. I think he's great. He's a good mix of just between the tackles. When he gets out in space, he's got some good speed. It's like you look at Devin Ford and Noah Cain for Penn State, for example. Devin Ford's more of a bruiser. He's a guy who is going to pound between the tackles, get you 4 or 5 yards. Noah Cain's somebody who's kind of got more of that quickness, that burst to him. And I think Journey Brown's a good combination of that. And you talk about all the NFL guys from Georgia. You look at Penn State. You talk about, Saquon Barkley looks like he's, running away with one of the best running backs ever. You look at, Miles Sanders, great rookie year for the Eagles. And you're going to look in a couple of years, you're going to see Journey Brown on an NFL roster. You're going to see, Noah Ford, Devin Cain, because you're going to see those names in the NFL. So I would just say, pay attention to the Penn State running backs the next few years because they have a chance to be really dangerous.
I believe it. They always producing
awesome.
something.
Well, Jake, thanks for being on today.
Go ahead, Zach.
Thanks for being on today, Jake. We will have you on again in the future. Until next time, thanks for being on here.
Thanks for having me on.
The SNS show. Make sure you go check them out.
Definitely. All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in today. Great show, as always. We're wrapping it up now. Until next time, we'll see everyone soon.